Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Debate Club. This is basically a platform where we engage in healthy debates and discussions every week. The topic for this week is recreational drugs should be legalized in India. Agree or disagree? I think people have various stances on this, but on like the most far two ends of the spectrum are people who think they should be legalized completely, as in recreational drugs, and people who think these drugs should not be legalized. Just to set the context, recreational drugs are those drugs that are used for non-medical purposes and which essentially get people high. For example, cocaine or marijuana. So, people who believe that these things should be legalized. Uh, the topic basically is that consumption of recreational drugs should be legalized in India, whether you agree or disagree. On one end of the spectrum are people who think these drugs should be legalized, and they take into account examples of reducing the stigma that is around these kinds of drugs and the point of personal autonomy that people should be allowed to do whatever they want with their own lives. And on another end of the spectrum is a more moral perspective and a general public concern that this might lead to a deterioration of community values and things like that. I'm pretty interested to see what you guys think about this, to hear your opinions and insights. Let's get the session started for the week. People who want to go ahead and speak can use the reaction button to raise their hands.
Yeah, Rose, can I go first?
Uh, Ellen, you've got to raise your hand. I mean, I saw Ashwin raise his hand first, so I'll let you go next.
Okay,
Doesn't matter.
okay,
He
yeah.
can go first if he wants.
No, that's okay. I was just figuring out how to raise the hand. I'm just kind of
Oh,
a
okay,
fool.
no problem, no problem. I'll just let you go next. Ashwin, please go ahead.
Okay. There is something called as, humans have a tendency to stop themselves from their basic instincts taking over. For example, uh, if we look at a person in a restaurant, eating delicious food, we just do not just go and grab the food, but we have the ability to resist. Okay, but I have realized it's my personal experience that when I consume alcohol, this ability to resist comes down. Generally, and it also correlates with people who take alcohol. They they tend to misbehave generally on against women and stuff like that. So I believe even recreational drugs like marijuana and other things. I believe, I am not sure if it is true, but it brings down the ability of the person to resist from their basic instincts, and their the animal characteristics take over, and they do stuff that are harmful for others. This is what I think.
Thank you so much, Ashwin. Ashwin is of the opinion that consumption of such drugs might bring down people's ability to resist things that may not be the best thing. And other people also sometimes have to face the repercussions of such actions. So thank you so much, Ashwin. Ellen, you can go ahead.
Yeah, Rose, thank you. I'll just add from what Ashwin was saying. First, I feel there has to be a broader classification of what we mean by recreational drugs. So I don't think alcohol specifically falls into that. Alcohol is, its consumption of alcohol is not illegal. So alcohol doesn't come there. But of course, marijuana is there. For medical users, I'm not sure how much of it is prevalent in India. But even then, people have to go under the table, or they have to stay hidden. We call it scoring, or however they can term that. And the issue with terming all of these drugs under one umbrella is that each drug has a very specific effect, and it's pretty different. For example, marijuana has a different, effect on your sensory motor control of your body. So does cocaine, so does MD, so does your Molly and ecstasy, those tablets, etc. There are many other forms, mushrooms and psychedelics. So the problem is like, what do you want to legalize and what you don't want to legalize? Right now, as we know that in the places of United States and certain places in Europe and Canada, marijuana is legalized because people feel that socially the effects of marijuana as if somebody consumes, their effect on the society as such is not the same as people who take hard drugs. I would tell them as hard drugs like coke and MD, etc. And this is their statistics, or they probably had a study into this. They understood the dynamics. Now the talk comes is when what does it do to a person? What does it do to the individual? How much of consumption of marijuana affects the individual? So yeah, I'm not completely against legalization, but how much of proof and study do you have to say that if I am legalizing so and so drug, I'm just taking marijuana for example? How sure are you that personally does not affect a person's life as much as the society, or how sure are you that this does not rob of one's life as such? First, I know in my life examples of people who have suffered in spite of being great intellectuals capable of pursuing many good things. How marijuana acts like a downer and it kind of keeps you in a place. And once you get hooked to it, how hard it is to come out of. Uh, Before you know it, if somebody has been, let's say, a regular uh, consumer of marijuana, and before they know it, 10 years has passed. And when I have spoken to these people, I have asked them the specific question of how much of your life decision have you actually taken without the effects of marijuana lingering? And that really got them thinking. So I'm speaking in a way that trying to understand the mindset of people who want to legalize. But personally, I feel it is better not to legalize it. And the problem with a decision of not legalizing also, there is a drawback in it. What happens is people indulge more in activities of trying to pursue it without under the law, behind the law, let's say. And that in itself is actually giving them an adrenaline rush, knowing that something is not legal. And okay, what, I'm doing something very cool. That even that aspect is a scary thing. I have seen people who have not had marijuana, but just the fact that just the word that when you're discussing with friends, it just goes around like, yeah, what is not legal. And then immediately they kind of throw it under the umbrella of, what, it's cool, maybe I can try it once. So that is also a scary thing. And so that is my stance, as in, I do not want to like legalize it, but how much can we actually control it? Even if you don't legalize, has it really been controlled? Have people, has making it illegal stop people from acquiring? And just to finish my opening stance, excuse me. Oh, yeah, I think I will stop it here. I will wait for others to speak so I can continue on.
All right, thank you so much, Ellen. Raghav, you're next. Raghav, are you there?
Sorry, I was on mute. Can you hear me now?
Mm.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I
Yes,
can hear
Raghav.
you.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So first of all, let's talk about the what recreational drugs are. Thanks, man. Thanks. Yeah. So I was saying that first let's define what recreational drugs are. Recreational drugs are basically these are drugs that are used by people for recreational reasons, as in they want to get high, they want to feel good or something like that. They want to basically there are three classes of recreational drugs. There's stimulants and depressants and hallucinogens. Okay, So these are three classes of drugs that alter your mood or alter your state of consciousness. And people use these for their own entertainment, right? Now, regardless of what it does to the individual, whether they want to be, drunk or hammered or high or whatever it is, there is a certain consequence to society out of that, right? So when somebody is acting like, for example, drunk driving, this is a societal hazard, right? So there is an incentive for society to enforce some kind of like mechanism in place which discourages the use of these drugs. Okay, so from that perspective, I think that much we all can agree on. I'm not sure if there is anybody who would disagree with that much, but let's say that we agree on all that. Now, the purpose of legalization is a measure that is meant to minimize drug use, right? So if you legalize it, I mean, if you enforce laws that are meant to minimize the drug use, is it actually doing that? First of all, you have to examine the consequences of these legal actions. Because people who get high, right now, marijuana is illegal in India. But people who want to get high, they will anyway find a way to get high. Okay. So this means that if it's not effective, what is the purpose of it? Because actually there are multiple consequences to this. There is actually incidents of like weed being rat poisoned. So people who are buying weed illegally, right? These are they're very highly compressed, and what happens is that it loses its efficacy. And in order to like make it saleable, these dealers they add like rat poison to it, and then they'll sell that weed. And people who smoke this, some of them have died. So there is a there's a dangerous problem to this whole the whole reason why it is compressed and losing its efficacy is because they have to ship it in really highly compressed states. Otherwise, they'll get detected, right? So they diminish the quality of the weed to ship it, and then as to compensate for it, they're adding poison to it. And these kind of things happen because of these legal restrictions. And it is not stopping people who from being able to access these drugs. So you really need to think about the consequence of legalization. So if you actually legalize marijuana. For example, if you see in the West, in America, they've legalized recreational use in many places, and in Thailand, they recently legalized it in 2021. And what happened is that they saw an economic boom, and the people who continue to use their drugs, they will actually have easy access to high quality drugs, and it's actually injecting into the revenue system. So this is the consequence of legalization. People who are going to smoke are going to smoke, and then people who and people are actually making a business out of it. So it's actually injecting into the economy. Now, there is a third component to this whole thing. First of all, do you need the society to intervene and put a control on your ability to change your state of mind? So this is another topic. I'll elaborate a little more on this a little bit, but I think I've spoken a little too much. So I'll let the others speak. But primarily, I just want to mention the context of this. I do think that we have to examine the consequence of legalization, because it's not really doing anything to help the cause. It's actually making things worse in many cases. So that's something that I think we should think about. I would support like rework of the legal framework around this, so that like we actually allow people to do what they want to do and then make a business out of it. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Raghav. Samar, you can go ahead.
Yeah, so under this various drugs which are classified as recreational drugs, the prominent ones I think are it's weed, and then it is cocaine, and then there are various opioids including heroin and fentanyl, and then there is meth. Uh, so, so the question is commonly asked is it just arbitrary to ban the drugs that I just mentioned and keep other drugs such as nicotine, caffeine, and alcohol legal? It seems to be arbitrary, but I would argue that it is not actually. All of the drugs that are classified as recreational so far, they are much more potent than the latter. By the latter, I meant this nicotine, caffeine, and alcohol. And also these recreational drugs, they are much more addictive than the and then the latter. And then these recreational drugs, they have much more adverse effect on the body and mind than the latter. So if that is why, like, if you take a random individual from the street, he or she is more able to control and moderate the usage of this caffeine or alcohol, then they're able to control or moderate the usage of the recreational drugs. That is the reality. Most people, they are able to control and moderate their intake of caffeine or alcohol, but most people, they are unable to control and moderate the intake of heroin and crystal meth, for example. And this is the common sense observation of all people around the world. So given these facts, I think it is reasonable to ban the usage of recreational drugs and keep legal the intake of alcohol or caffeine or nicotine. Yeah, so that will be my argument for the time being.
Thank you so much, Samarth. Prince, you can go ahead.
Thanks, Rose. Yeah, so I do kind of understand the boomerang effect or the psychological reactance this banning of recreational drugs could have, but we need to have a bit more holistic view when we talk of this making or legalizing the recreational drug use in India, because India has a very unique geographical location, especially with respect to recreational drugs, because we sit at the borders of Golden Triangle and the Golden Crescent, the two of the highest opium producers of the world. And we need to see how this geographical location kind of negatively affect us, because even after putting such a heavy hand on drug abuse, we are still seeing, according to the report by Ministry of Social Justice, 2.1% of Indians using opioids like heroin, opium, and recreational sedatives. So if we are to legalize these drugs, then we need to see that where it is going to stop. Is legalizing recreational drugs not opening ways to all kind of drugs? Because you can't, when you are legalizing some sort of recreational drug, then you can't nitpick about what you want and what you don't want. Additionally, if you look at the ways Raghav also pointed out, the ways the drugs are being smuggled, uh, they are kind of restricted in the way they can, smuggle these kind of drugs. But if we make it legalized to sell, use, and advertise these kind of drugs, then several new forms of this drug abuse can come to play, like powder form or direct consumption. And this not only sanctions the use of drugs, but it also has a role to play in the security and integrity of the state. The internal security of the state will be damned. And again, this is my personal opinion that drugs are in a way anti-civilization. We saw the case of US, the global drug supplier, that the use of fentanyl had led to the creation of these zombie cities. And it is not just the case in the US. If we go to the remote villages of Punjab, uh, let alone remote villages, if we go to the areas like Gurdaspur, we see these kind of zombie cities being created in India as well due to the excess use of fentanyl. So again, it comes to two basic points: that are Indians ready to use recreational drugs in a controlled way, and can they control their disorder, this recreational drug disorder, or are we not ready? Because being in such a geographically challenging position, the consumption of drugs could like multiply like nothing, and it can go out of control. Yes.
Great points, Prince. Thank you so much. I personally somehow relate with the points made by both Raghav and Prince. I think personally, I don't think these things should be legal and or be normalized. But again, that's really a very personal perspective from my side. But at the same time, if we do not legalize it, it does not necessarily mean the consumption is going to stop, right? So if we legalize it and the consequences are opposite of what we wish to see, which is the reduction of such consumption, so I think definitely we need a better prediction of what happens if you legalize it and what happens if it is illegal. But then that prediction is never really 100% possible, even if we look at what is being faced by other countries, because the same measure being implemented in different geographies can bring out different consequences based on what the long-standing history is, the kind of perception about the thing in question the people have, the traditions, and what mindset these people have. So honestly, I think there is a need for taking both of these sides, legalizing and then keeping it illegal, and then seeing what are the consequences and go for whatever helps to best reduce the consumption of such drugs in the country. Yeah, so that's my personal perspective on that. I'll now let Saju go ahead.
Okay, I have not much to speak on this thing because my knowledge is limited. So I just want to give you a quick reminder. Will I get a summary of this session, like AI-based summary or some documentation that what is the points discussed and all that?
Uh,
No.
Not really a summary, but there will be a recording of this session on the YouTube channel.
Okay, so my request to previous people who are speaking is, can we make arguments based on knowledge and rationality rather than fear? Or can you expose what are we really afraid of when we are saying that we have to make it legal or illegal? Yeah, thank you.
All right. Okay, Saju. Thank you. Sandeep, please go ahead.
Yeah. So the production, supply, and consumption of these recreational drugs is if either legalized or not is going to continue. Is it going to increase or decrease? No one could predict. There are multiple factors that would project how it would go. And say there, although let's say if I have to compare it to like cigarettes and alcohol, although they are legal, there are certain requirement like say there is an age limit that someone could go and buy this thing, right? But the scrutiny is much the bar is set very low for these kind of drugs. And someone had made an argument that people are able to control the consumption of caffeine or alcohol or the whatever the drugs which already legalized, which we consider recreational drugs. But I think the effect of these drugs are not so much when compared to other potent drugs that we think they are people are have a control over it, but they actually do not have. But because if you take like 1 gram of this potent drugs, which has much more effect on you than if you drink like 20 glasses of coffee per day. That's a different, the the effect that it has on your body is much different. And there is an argument that has to be made also. If it is illegal, let's say it's not legalized, the quality of these drugs is not unsure, right? Let's say a certain A, B, C drug has been illegally smuggled into the countries and distributed and consumed. There is no quality check for it, right? People might consume it, thinking that it is what it is, but it is not. And we all know that there are several cases that people got heavy metal how we say uh, into the drugs, and they had adverse effects other than the drugs which are that they are meant to be. So because it is not illegal, the control and the supply chain itself is not reliable. And the second thing, if I have to make an argument that it has to be legalized, even let's say if the simple comparison is alcohol, right? It is legal for a very long time, but it doesn't mean because it is legal, not everyone is consuming it. And of course, the popular belief and the stigma around it still exists. Although it is legal, people are not consuming we think that they will. And second thing, yes, the social dynamics around something consuming alcohol 20 years ago is much stigmatic than consuming alcohol. You say like sometimes like very recreational, like once or twice a year. It has become a social norm nowadays in the popular lifestyles. So that is how. Although it is like, let's say if people are do consuming alcohol once in a while, they're not getting addicted to it. They're doing it for the sake of the social gatherings. I'm not saying that it is a good thing or a bad thing. What I'm trying to say is the more we try to control something, it's the people are they will get it in either way. So it's better to legalize it and have a grip on it, because right now if it's not legalized, we don't have a grip on it and we cannot control the quality of that. So yeah, even if we do legalize it, I don't think the social dynamics is the one which is going to dictate people are going to consume it or not. Not actually because it is legalized. Not, I don't think everyone is going to go out there and get addicted to it, right? So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Cindy. Samarth, you can go ahead.
Yeah. One of the arguments that was brought up in favor of legalization was that how when these products are legalized, they can also be standardized, ensuring that the bad quality products are weeded out. That might be true to a certain extent, but that will not solve the problem of the existence of bad quality products. Even in present day India, although alcohol is illegal, we still find illegal low quality alcohol that is being produced and consumed, which you know which has a huge detrimental impact on the physical health of the people consuming it, and also it leads to the death of people consuming these kinds of low quality illegal alcohol. So just by the argument that just by like legalizing something like uh, the product can be like totally standardized, that will never happen. So all of these illegal low quality products, they will continue to exist. Now, given this fact, like that cannot be the criteria, for legalizing a presently illegal substance. What must instead be the criteria, in my opinion, is what is the degree of the potency of the drug involved. I think like several speakers they acknowledge that the recreational drugs they are a different class compared to let's say like alcohol and caffeine. So I think this should be the criteria in deciding whether a drug is legalized or not. Like if you're going to legalize drugs such as like heroin, cocaine, or meth, it's like playing with fire basically. And an average person, like when he plays with fire, he's going more often than not, he's gonna get burned. So there is no way that these inherently dangerous products can ever be made safe for consumption. That is not in the nature of these products itself in the first place. So it's like a losing game to try and make these products like safe and standardized. Yeah, so that will be my first point. And the second point about the any economic benefits that might accrue to the economy. In the case of legalization, whatever those economic benefits, it will be there will be like 10 times, 100 times more economic losses compared to any economic benefits, because it is the nature of these powerful drugs that the people who consume these drugs, they will be most likely they will be like rendered highly addicted to that one, and they cannot function without that one, and basically, in a short span of time, an average person who is mostly functional will become like very addicted and dysfunctional, who cannot hold down his job or go about his daily activities. So when that is the case, there is obviously a financial loss to the state. Like when working age people who are educated, they cannot fulfill, they cannot hold down a job. Obviously, there is this economic harm being done to the state. And then like when people are not able to support themselves financially, they turn to like illegal activities to support themselves and to support their addiction. So any like decrease in crime that might happen due to the legalization of drugs. One of the argument is like if you're going to legalize drugs, then all of the drug-related offenses will come down. That is the argument in favor of legalization. But the reality is that although drug-related offenses that might come down, all of the other kinds of offenses, they will increase because people they are not able to support themselves through legal means, and that's why they resort to illegal means to support themselves, whether that be like engaging in financial fraud or engaging in robbery or engaging in prostitution. All of these crimes are going to skyrocket, and that is why we witness a good example for this phenomenon would be like US, where the laws related to the drugs, they vary from state to state. And you might think that the states which have legalized this use of recreational drugs, they might see a decrease in crime because there are like less crime related drug related offenses, right? But yeah, so that might happen, but the overall crime rate will increase because of the things that I mentioned a little while back. And large segments of the cities, they will become like essentially like crime ridden and inhospitable. That will drive away all of the businesses from there and well-meaning people from there, and it will be like littered with non-functional and drug-addicted people who are engaged in crime to support themselves. That is the reality that will come to pass if we legalize drugs in any part of the world, to be frank. Yeah, so these will be my arguments. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Samar. Great points right there. Raghav, I'll let you go ahead here.
Okay, so I have a lot of things to say, so I'm going to try to make this really quick. So first of all, there is a certain line that we have to draw between how much freedom individuals have and then what is necessary from a societal perspective. I mean, if I like, if somebody wants to go and like, let's say they want to like, inject themselves with these hard drugs. Why should the society care, right? And the answer is that it's not like anything. It's not like you should have complete freedom as an individual. If you happen to have that complete freedom as an individual, you will inevitably damage the freedom of the others. So there has to be a certain line set where the personal freedom is compromised in order to ensure societal harmony. So that is the larger context, ethical context of this discussion. Okay, so where do we draw the line in terms of like what drugs should be should be discouraged and what drugs we should not care about as a society? And in the US, the legal system like classifies drugs into several classes. There are like 5 schedules of drugs, each classified according to different properties of the drugs, or what kind of effect it has on the drugs, and what is the threshold for dependency and abuse, right? Because like when an individual abuses a drug and depends excessively on that drug, it has a harmful effect on their psychological state, and therefore also the harmful effects of the people around them. And so as a society, we have a responsibility to minimize those negative effects. So that's why it makes sense to minimize the availability and accessibility of certain drugs. But this is where it's really challenging because there are several kinds of drugs. And, you have like naturally occurring drugs like, herbs. This could be like, nicotine, which is tobacco, and then and then marijuana, or there are other kind of like plant-based drugs. Ayahuasca is another naturally sourced drug. This is a drug that they make in South America, where the tribes, they have a spiritual practice. It is not meant as abuse. They have these like spiritual practices where they consume this drug in a very reverential fashion. It's actually close to their religion, and they practice this to hallucinate and see some spiritual realizations. And actually they have a ayahuasca based tourism, where like people from around the world go to consume ayahuasca, so that like they can have a certain spiritual realization. And people do this with mushrooms. So mushrooms is another naturally occurring drug that there is nothing natural about like you um, placing a barrier between mankind and these naturally occurring drugs. And these drugs, they do alter your state of mind. They do have a certain effect on you, and they could have a certain dependency as well. But then you have to draw a stark contrast between these and synthetic drugs. There are like synthetic opioids, which are very, they have unnatural effects on the human body. It damages the human body in a very permanent way, in a lot of ways. And then we also have things like DMT, which is again, it's a naturally occurring substance, and they're just like using that in a certain way that is maybe like not naturally occurring. So the challenge is that we have to, I personally believe that we need to make sure that naturally occurring substances are not restricted. And then these things like ketamine and morphine and oxycodone, these are all like very, very like they have unnatural effects on the human body. These are not naturally occurring substances. These are made in a lab, where and we have to make sure that we draw a balance between personal freedom and what is something that could be having unnatural amounts of detrimental impacts. Because even if somebody chooses to smoke marijuana or consume mushrooms on a regular basis, it's not like they're having a permanent damage. They can choose to control their usage. So I think we should have a system kind of like what the Americans have, where they have a schedules of drugs, and then we should have specific laws, and the law should be effective. As in that here actually what happens is that if you have the money, you can get the things that you want. And a lot of it involves bribing the officers about like and getting it through them itself. Sometimes these things also happen. So I'm just saying that even though we have to apply laws, we have to make sure that the consequences are effective, and we're not like having a very poorly structured legal system around it. So I'll stop there.
Thank you so much, Raghav. Next up will be Sandeep.
Yeah, I should say that Raghav has squared up it very well. I agree with all the points that he have mentioned. And the previous speaker was before the previous speaker before Raghav also was pointing out that it cannot be a justification to legalize it. Yes, I do agree with that as well. My point being, see, if either legalize it or not, people are going to consume it. And yes, of course, I'm not with the financial gains of the financials that the government would get because of selling this. That's actually, yes, I do agree with that it comes with a 100x harm for the society, and that would financially affect the society itself. But again, legalizing it doesn't mean that everybody could get it. Once if it is legalized, there is certain point, as Mr. Raga has said, we categorize it and give them certain specifications that okay, this belongs to this category. But as long as there is like 100% ban on everything, there is a sense of the taboo that surrounds everything. And then it also leads to some kind of a thing like, let's say, the law enforcement and the drug distributors would be negatively affecting on those people who are consuming it, right? We might think, okay, the drug makers and the drug distributors are trying to ease in the chain, but also the law enforcement is also involved in the chain, right? If the law enforcement is doing their job 100%, this wouldn't be happening. The drugs are being smuggled from one country to another because of the law enforcement, not due to not what do you say? It is because of the law enforcement that is happening. So we cannot count on the law enforcement as such. So as it is not going to happen anyway, if it is legalized and categorized and controlled by the government itself, if let's say someone wants to have to take it, then there is a procedure that you can follow legally, right? You consult a doctor. I mean, I'm not saying that if you want to get addicted to some kind of a drug which is harmful to you, but at least you have the control. You know what is the dosage you have been taking. The doctors know what your physical condition is. But when you're taking it illegal, it becomes a taboo. Okay, I should keep it like in a stealth mode as much as possible. So if it is legalized, they don't have to be afraid of the law enforcement, right? Because they are the part of the mafia, and they are the people who get affected because of the law enforcement. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Sandeep. Saju, please go ahead.
I have few points to make. I've written down. Uh, can you all hear me?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay. So I think the primary concern has been, and I'm reading from the document that is uploaded. So the first thing that I come across is, I'm just trying to rephrase my thoughts. The first question that I had is, why the spiritual practices of consumption of drugs is not considered addictive. I believe that the Naga sadhus of India, they do have a practice of consuming drugs, but they are considered godly, and actually they are in a state of addiction, and people kind of worship that. There is some kind of a deity and a kind of god worship associated with that. So I think the way people talk about drugs, the fear that is coming through in the past discussions is, it is addictive. And I definitely think that addiction to anything um, is kind of controlling human behavior, which is not something that we should promote. But then there are a lot of things that are addictive, but doesn't naturally cause. I mean, we cannot naturally say that anybody who consumes those things will lead to addiction. For example, there are many people who consume alcohol, but they do it for recreational purposes, and it's not considered addictive. Um, I mean, it is not considered that everybody who consumes alcohol is an addict. The same way, I don't think we have to be afraid of drugs in that manner, but there are certain class of drugs which was pointed out earlier by someone, that it is very addictive, like the opioid crisis in the US and all. It caused a lot of addiction. So I don't think banning the drugs for addiction is a necessary solution. So I'll just briefly get into other things, like road safety is mentioned there, but road safety because of drug consumption is just an example of somebody having compromised cognitive skills and still doing driving. For example, if you are sleepy, had a long night and you're not slept, and if you still drive a vehicle, it is like compromising safety. I don't think that is a valid argument. Synthetic opioids. I would like to speak about synthetic opioids in my next turn. I will close with a short example. Alcohol is banned completely in Gujarat, in India, but it has made a lot of local politicians over there very wealthy, very wealthy. And I think what we have to address as a group here is whether what is it that we're really afraid of when we say we should not legalize drugs. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Saju. Prince, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Rose. Yeah, first of all, I'd like to agree with Samarth and just add an example that legalization does not always mean standardization because low quality product is always associated with profit. Milk is the most legalized thing in India. Still, we see detergent and urea being used to make milk. Uh, Additionally, the fact that personal freedom is important, yes, of course, people should have personal freedom to do whatever they like with their lives, but their personal freedom should not infringe with others' freedom because ultimately it's the greater good of the greatest number we are talking about. And I guess it was Sandeep who pointed out this great point that whether we legalize it or not, people are using it. Right, 2.1% of India is using it. But the main question comes to our faces is it comfortable for them to get those kind of drugs? There is always a uh, some sort of a guilt in their minds that they are breaking the laws. And most important of all, if I want to use drugs or marijuana, I just can't go to any random drugstore and get it. I need to know the right people uh, from whom I can get this. Because if we legalize it, then we are sanctioning it, and whether we accept it or not, legalizing something is a proof that we are giving social acceptance to that cause. If we are making a law in favor of something, then that itself shows that the society has accepted it. Uh, and in this stage where, you know, even if we legalize some parts of drugs and we just assume that okay, these drugs are legal and these are not, then with the workforce of NCBO 1496, are we sure we are or we can even think of enforcing those laws? Of course, when it is 100% illegal, then one more point that comes to our favor is that it's completely illegal. This intricacies or the loopholes in the laws don't come into play when we get into the legal framework. And by the way, the workforce of 1496 is also after an increase of 40% this year itself. I guess someone pointed out that Naga sadhus use some form of cannabis. I guess it is female cannabis that they use. But that is a religious practice that is completely out of the frame because Sikhs can carry kirpan anywhere they go, irrespective of the laws there. Women can wear women of specific religion can wear burqas in school against the uniform, and the state or the school administration has no right to stop them because those are uh, kind of an important part of their religion. And Supreme Court himself said that even the courts can't dispute the freedom of religion that is given to us the by our forefathers. And yeah, I'll just end there. I want two more points, but I guess the burden of proof is on the other side, so I'll let them speak. Yeah, Rose.
Thank you so much, Prince. Great perspective you have right there, and I personally very much agree on what you pointed out about the religious practices because in certain cases there will always be exceptions when it comes to religion, and I think our Supreme Court also has made it very clear that essential religious practices cannot be restricted under any circumstances, I guess. So yeah, thank you so much. Sandeep, please go ahead.
Yeah, it's not like a diversion to the topic as you were this somebody brought religion into the thing. So religion is not something that is standardized. Okay, I can be one person and I have my own religion. So when it comes to religion, the boundaries vanish. So there is two laws applied here. Okay, if I go to Punjab, the Sikhs make a argument that I cannot wear a helmet because I'm wearing a pagadi, right? According to me, that's a stupid argument. I can say that the same thing like okay, I'm a religion, I belong to a religion that I don't wear helmets. So the bringing religion into things is like you erase the borders there, and then all sorts of arguments comes in. So I don't think religion should be a basis for letting people to consume do whatever they want, because religion is just a belief that you have in your, just that's a set of things that you believe. It doesn't mean that is justified in the broader context of society. So if a sardar is not is allowed to wear a pagadi, not a helmet, why not me? See, I don't want to wear a helmet. It's my wish. That's my religion. My religion is like I don't want to wear a helmet. We are the religions with no helmets. So religion is not. I don't think is a basis for justifying anything. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sandeep. Raghav, please.
Yeah, so I agree with Sandeep on this. I think that religion should mean what is religion? It's really hard to define what religion is. You could have like a personal belief system that could constitute a religion by itself. There's so many gray things about that. Like, but I want to talk about also if you're okay with like religion being a valid justification for recreational drug use, then a lot of people drink bang, and bang contains cannabis, right? It kind of like brings in a lot of gray areas, because the legal classification of legal status of marijuana is that it's banned. But how can you make products out of it if it's banned? It makes no sense. So I think that instead of like doing things like this, which is going to confuse everybody and is not even really that effective. I mean, what if I say that getting high is my religion? If you do that, like, then what do? You just like let them do it. Again, I agree with Sandeep on what he said. The other thing is that instead of doing it like that, I think that we should just go for what I was saying earlier about like having different classes of drugs based on how severely depending on like the potential for abuse, basically. Because it is possible to, just like how you can drink like 10 cups of coffee, at that point you're addicted to coffee and nobody is coming to stop you. There is no legal mechanism to stop you from getting into that level of dependency. But at the same time, like what is the incentive for preventing dependency on something very mild? For example, mushrooms, they actually have like maybe like 6 to 7 hours of effects, like hallucinogenic effects. And after that, like if you consume the same amount of mushrooms, your your body's own threshold will go up. So your body's own dependency will go up. And it is possible to get addicted to mushrooms, but a lot of the times, like it doesn't get there. So things like that are still banned in India and many places, actually. And there is no justification for there. You can justifiably ban things like for example, ketamine or morphine or Adderall or methadone, all these things. And there is good reason to try to minimize that use. But what about like plants and mushrooms? These are things that grow up on the ground. How can you say that human beings are prohibited from accessing something that is just coming out of the ground? So I think we have to have different policies depending on the mechanism of the production of that drug. If it's something that is like extracted from natural substances, I think we should treat it differently. And also not just that, but also in terms of potency or potential for abuse. For example, if you take poppy, and there is a opium in that, so you can actually create really potent drugs out of that. So you have to like maybe have a different legal mechanism for that. And I think that in terms of enforcement as well, I think you have to like target the source, the availability, not the consumer. I think that they have to have different I think they have to have different like rules applicable for people who are consumers and people who are dealers and people who are manufacturers. So that's where I'll stop.
Thank you so much, Raghav. Prince, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, both. Yeah, great points. But first of all, on the bhang part, bhang is actually legal in most Indian states, and I guess I recently saw news regarding sanctioned bhang stores during Holi in Uttar Pradesh. Yeah, so mostly this kind of duality comes because cannabis comes in two parts. There are male parts and there are female parts. Male parts are mostly allowed in India. Female parts are not. There is patriarchy there also. Yeah, but the flower resin is not. The flower resin of cannabis is not allowed. And if we go by the fact that natural rights, we have natural rights that whatever is grown, we should be able to consume, and rightly so. No one can stop the human creed from saying that we shall not be able to consume something that's naturally available. But we give some of our natural rights for the luxuries that we enjoy in our society. Uh, Not every law that is in society is natural, and not everything that we follow in the society is according to the natural instincts of humans. But we gave up some of our uh, basic instincts and rights for the luxuries and the civic order that we currently enjoy in the society. Additionally, if we go to having different laws for the dealers and the consumers, then the thing is that it's going to be the same again. The dealers are going to uh, try to come up with some sort of loophole or some sort of a way to smuggle those kind of drugs to make sure that uh, they don't follow that regulations, or they don't have to pay uh, some sort of tax that will be levied onto that. So, okay, if it's already so, I'm sorry, I'm not aware of that. Yeah, I guess that's it from my side. Yeah, Rose.
Great points, Prince. Ellen, please go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, people. I just dropped off in between. I think the app wasn't working. I just joined a bit late again. I want to like continue from where I started, and I also think it is in line with what Raga was saying recently. That when I initially said that we need to have a broader classification of the drugs based on its effects, and that's why I also termed it as hard drugs. The all the manufactured drugs that go through some kind of sophistication and bringing it as a consumable product, starting from your coke, MD, meth, and the whole spectrum of it, and the plant-based drugs like marijuana and your mushrooms, for example. I just want to state that I'm not completely against legalization. Uh, I just want to make sure that the government is aware of, or the body which is in, it could be even us, it could be a law that also requires the support of the public, or the government we choose to pass the bill. But the only issue is trust, that how much is the government sure or they have controlled this process? If they are legalizing marijuana tomorrow in India, how much are they aware that the good and bad effects of it, and are they aware of the effects of marijuana becoming an addiction? How much consumption of marijuana? So, do they have parameters? Do they have thresholds in place to control them? And also, initially, I think at the start, Raghu was also saying about the phenomenon of spiking. We call it spiking when you add bag on or rat poison to the drugs, to the marijuana, just to make it feel like it gives you something. We can easily taste the moment we even consume it. We can taste it. We can know the difference between the fresh ones and the ones that actually have such elements in it. So that's also a risk factor. So I just wanted to. This is the point I wanted to make. I'm okay with legalization as long as the body is aware of its long-lasting effects. Because from my own personal anecdotes, I've seen, like me personally, I have, luckily, I have been able to, have a great control of it. Even if I do, friends or as a community, we do have it. I'm not drawn towards it. It's only due, and as the term says, recreational. It's only more during we want to party or we are uh, going to clubs and be consuming alcohol. So these are only moments that I am aware of myself and I know how much control I have on. So from my perspective, I can speak about legalization. But I do know people who are not able to control this, who actually fall prey to the effects of what it makes your state of mind feel. So that's again like in line with what Raghav was saying initially, that who are we to control what people want to feel on their minds. But the point is like, how sure are you that that specific person or a group of people? How sure are you that it doesn't make you get addicted? So this is kind of a bouncy, or a ping pong kind of a topic where back and forth. We keep having points. So yeah, that is pretty much my stance.
Great point, Ellen. I could personally relate to your perspective a lot. I mean, we cannot stop people from having a certain level of autonomy over how they want to feel and what they want to do to their mind or body, but I don't think we can ever be completely sure that it's not going to affect others. Like what they are doing is not going to affect others in the society who may not be doing it, right? So yeah, great point, Ellen. Raghav, please go ahead.
So one thing is that in terms of personal autonomy, right? Like for example, people have toxic, relationships with other people. Do you as a society have a responsibility to go and intervene in that and damaging themselves in some way, or do you just allow them to make their own life choices and come to make their own decisions? I mean, if there are like certain the laws are basically against like violence and sexual assault and things like that. So that is how I think we should approach drugs as well. Legalization of drugs, I think you should approach in terms of the effects, or like you have to have like certain basic criteria, and then if that drug qualifies for that criteria, then you have special sanctions for it in the law. So instead of like talking abstractly, I'll go to the comments. I saw a bunch of comments by somebody named Mo, and I found those questions really interesting. Actually, it's good that we're asking these questions. Firstly, what's the need for a human being in society to be dependent on something else? Is that freedom or slavery? So it's a very good point, and I want to just like emphasize a distinction when we say freedom. Freedom means you have the freedom to make the choice of whether you want to be free or slave. So when you're dependent on a drug, you are enslaved to the drug. That is slavery. But I have the freedom to choose whether to do that for myself or not. So that is the freedom we are talking about. And for example, if you are dependent on caffeine, is that something that the society has to come and stop you, or should you have the freedom to do what you want, right? And also we have to look at the effects of somebody coming and trying to intervene in something that somebody wants to do. For example, if you want to drink your coffee and somebody's coming and stopping you from doing it, it's probably going to agitate you. It is going to have that negative effect on you, and you may try to figure out a way to go around it. And that's what's happening with the drugs. And the next thing is, there are a few venomous plants that also come from the ground. Shall we legalize it and make a business out of it too? I think that if you are capable of doing that, you should. What I'm saying is that legalizing is different from commercializing. So you're mixing the two together. The reason in the US and Thailand and other places where they've legalized weed, what happens is that they're also like commercializing it. So they're actually having systems in place to promote legal or like large scale consumption in a commercial way. And if there is a market for it, why not? Right? If it's a venomous plant, maybe it has medicinal properties if used properly. So maybe somebody wants to have that, and if they legalize it and people are using it to affect only themselves and not everybody else, then why should you as a society stop that from happening? So I think that those are important things for us to think about. Is the economy for the well-being of the society, or the society meant to be economy to drive? I don't understand this. Is the economy for the well-being of the society, or the society meant to? I mean, that's a philosophical question. I mean, it looks. I mean, depends on how you frame it. But I just want to respond to these things from my perspective. I'll stop here.
Thank you, Raghav. Sandeep, you can go.
Yeah, Raghav has made many points that I wanted to address, and I would like to add one more example to this. It's the drug policy of the Netherlands. So they have classified them into soft drugs and hard drugs. And the soft drugs, under the hard drugs, under the soft drugs, there is hash, marijuana, LSD, and ecstasy, and other smaller, little potency is very less. And they have categorized the other things into hard drugs, which are cocaine and heroin. So they have put a hard ban on heroin and cocaine. So there is an argument to be made when there is, like, as Raghav was pointing out, legalization and commercialization, right? Of course, alcohol is legal in India. You might say it is been commercialized through Bollywood, but even in the movies, when you see if somebody is drinking, it is constantly bombarded on you. Even before starting a movie, consumption of alcohol and smoking is injurious to health. And personally, I find it very irritating. Who I don't drink and smoke, but the point I'm trying to make is, although I'm not sure the financial gain that the government is getting out of it, if we keep that aside, there is a big social drive that is trying to discourage, although it is legal, they are trying to discourage it. Every single point, every single step you take, it is bombarded on you that it is harmful to you. So so it is psychologically put on you that these things are harmful to you if you consume it. And I'm sure that the people who are consuming these also know that, right? That they're doing it. And the same thing goes to this hard drugs, right? I'm not saying that you should legalize it and how you say, not commercialize it. But the point is it the legality of the drug is actually going to drive what people are actually consuming it? I personally believe the difference would be minimal, even if it is legalized. But if you're trying to discourage at a society level that you shouldn't consume it, but again, there is an argument to be made. Okay, if it is not legalized or legalized, people are trying to consume it anyway. Then I would choose a side. Okay, you legalize it and you try to figure out what it does, and you can at least put out a law that it is legal, but getting hold of the drug could be very hard for you. You have to jump through hoops and see up to what extent people are willing to do it, and what does it actually. I would say it probably kind of a little experiment to let what the society thinks and what the business people want to do with the legalization of the hard drugs. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sandeep. I believe Sandeep was the one who spoke, or someone. I'm so sorry, guys. Sandeep, have you spoken?
Yeah, I'm the one who finished
Oh, okay.
last.
Your hand was still raised, so I got confused. I'm
Yeah, I'm
sorry.
sorry.
Thank you, Sandeep. Ellen, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Rose. There are actually a lot of interesting points. And it's also a bit philosophical if we have to dig in deeper. So initially, Raghav was speaking about it's a people's freedom of choice to do what they want. And whether there is a law in place or not, people are still finding means to get access to these drugs. And there's a very interesting question I have, which is that we all are aware of the effects of hard drugs, even in a short term, its effect of getting to your addictive centers of your brain. And so we immediately are able to dismiss that and say that we should not legalize it. Even I think even right now when people are speaking about legalization, I think we are still sticking only to the plant-based drugs. I assume so. But that's a question I have: is that are we like actually waiting to see the long-term effects until we decide something is okay, something is harmful or not? Now I do understand, what do you say? The feeling that I think we should leave it to people to decide what they want to do. And I do agree with that in an aspect. In which case, why don't we go all the way? Why don't we legalize the hard drugs also? I mean, if people have to, make the decision by themselves, then we can legalize that as well. And I think we obviously will be against it because we do know the immediate effects of it. And like legalizing marijuana, like I said, the only reason why I would even consider something along those lines is because people are still finding ways to do it. And I have a feeling that there is also this sense or thrill of uh, obtaining something illegal that goes along with this trend of people consuming it. Apart from the feeling of getting high. So just like how people are aware of the effects of smoking cigarettes today, maybe legalizing marijuana also in long term, people might come to realize that maybe it's not. I mean, it is. It is. I'm not. I myself have been a consumer sometimes, but my point is like maybe people will realize it's not as important to include that in your life, and we can still go ahead without that. That's another topic for discussion. Uh, but the last thing I wanted to add along this terms of freedom of choice, and when we are comparing with Thailand and US, they are completely different countries. Us as a country, we are different in terms of culture and the way democracy itself is built, and the way it is built over US is different. In Thailand, we obviously know why it's even legal there to an extent. It's a party hub, and people all take vacations over there, and so that's a different scenario there as well. And one more thing about uh, the main reason why we discuss about legalization of drugs is because of its effects of addiction, how it can get a person addicted to something. Uh, in which case, that we have a lot of factors that are still addictive in today's society, and that it's completely going over our heads. A very simple example could be even the movie or the theatrical experiences, where people take it beyond the movies. And I can give you countless examples of how hero worshipping has become also an adverse effect on the youth today. So, when we consider all these elements, I think we as a society actually do not care much about the goodwill of the overall society than the personal choices, because already there are a lot of elements which I don't think are good. Cigarettes, for example, I don't. That could be a very good argument. Why are cigarettes legal but not marijuana? Because from my personal experience, they are much more harmful. And in that case, when I look at the bigger picture, I think legalization can be done, and we just need to control it and make sure that at least the initial stages, that it's a kind of experiment, and it has to be run in a slow, at a slow pace. I don't want to open the boundaries, but at least initially we want to deal with.
Thank you so much, Ellen. Raghav, you're up next.
Yeah. Yeah, I just want to quickly address what Ellen was saying. A couple of things. First, he raised the point of like, how do you like, if you're talking about a new drug, do you wait for long-term studies for the drug to be classified under a certain thing, and then come under the purview of the legal system? That's a very good question. That is a question. That is a problem, regardless of what how you uh, do anything, whether you legalize it or ban it or whatever it is. That is a problem we have to deal with as a civilization. I don't know if you guys know this, but back in the 1920s or something, when Coca-Cola first started out, they used to have cocaine in Coca-Cola. So the coca in Coca-Cola is actually for cocaine. It used to contain legal addition of cocaine in the Coca-Cola bottles. That's why people were really, that's how the whole popularity started of Coca-Cola. That it was actually giving them a lot of energy, and they were able to do a lot more things and all these things. And then later on, when they realized the adverse effects or the addictive properties of it, then they brought the legalization into the context, so that like they classified the drugs into different categories, and then they legalized these things. And that is how it goes. I don't know if you guys know this as well, but there was a time when doctors used to prescribe cigarettes to their patients. Doctors used to smoke it. Doctors used to have their own brand, and they will smoke in the room while they're taking the things. And they used to have this in airplanes. So there was a time when we did not realize the long-term effects of a drug, and it was legal until then. So this is nothing new. This is how it goes, And also regarding the other point raised by Ellen regarding the cultural difference between Thailand and the US and India, I disagree with the notion that India is a different place, so we have to have different approaches or something. The reason why I mentioned US and Thailand is that these are very, very separate countries. Like the one is in the West. If you say US alone, then you'll say that it's a Western country, so that's separate. That's why I also added Thailand, because Thailand is very similar to India. It's an Asian country. If you look at their culture, also it's most predominantly Buddhist culture. It's very similar to Indian values. The people believe in similar things. They have temples very similar to Indian temples. So it's a very very similar to how India is, and that's why I'm saying that they did this. And also in terms of like tourism, right? Yes, Thailand is a tourist country, so it is a place where people expect to have access to some drugs, and so it actually is good for their economy. So it has an economic value in that. But you have similar considerations for India as well. India has a large population, and if you commercialize certain drugs, there is definitely going to be profitability in that. So I'm not seeing the fundamental difference between these countries, which makes this point say that it's good for them but not good for us. And also, I want to also talk about the legalization itself. Legalization does not mean that you're just lifting a ban. You can also, like, there are other kinds of regulations that you can do. There are different approaches and different strategies for how you can legally achieve the intended effect of like people having minimal consumption and minimal abuse and minimal disruption of life in society. So one of the examples is like controlling the potency of the regulated drug. So if you, for example, if you legalize, let's say, heroin, right, you can ensure that heroin is only sold in labs, in government labs, and you can also say that the potency of the drug is diluted to less than 10% or something. So you're preventing the availability of the drug in higher quantities, because it is easier to enforce it. And if people are consuming heroin in society, then they are more likely to do it where it's available openly than some other place. And so regulation is also an effective tool, effective deterrent for people to get abused by these drugs. So people to allow themselves to be abused, rather. So there's some few points that I wanted to mention. But yeah.
Thank you, Raghav. So next up will be Saju, but before Saju goes ahead, I'd like people to start making concluding statements because it's 12:23 p.m. So we can take whatever points you have left into the unmoderated session where we will be discussing on the topic as more of a discussion than a debate. Saju, you can go ahead.
So, few things I want to debunk. Coca-Cola did not contain cocaine. It contained the extract of leaves of coca. Proceeding with that, there was in the notes mentioned, there is somebody has mentioned about synthetic opioids, right? So I think the whole discussion is pivoting around the debate. Not pivoting, I would say the crux of the debate is around addiction. See, we can talk about addiction, but it is a very difficult subject to talk about both from a legal side and from a society perspective, right? Nobody wants to be addicted to anything, but being addicted is also very natural to human beings, right? We have seen that there are people who are addicted to sugar, and ultimately in their life they develop diabetes. We have seen people who are addicted to alcohol, but not everybody who drinks is an addict. So even if you talk about the potency of the drugs, right, the purity of drugs, the way it happens, right, I do agree that the higher the potency, the higher is the addictiveness of a drug, and that's what I think everybody is afraid of. Now that's a different discussion altogether. I don't think I will have my son or anybody's son to have free access to drugs. But I do know that if I prevent him the experience, then he is going to try it himself sometime in the future by accessing it illegally, just out of curiosity. So I believe that it is okay to provide a safe space for anybody who wants to have the experience, a safe environment. And I don't think making it illegal is the answer. Probably you should make drugs illegal, but also provide a safe space, maybe a government sponsored space wherein a person can go in, have the experience, and come out fully cured or fully out of it. And then if he wants it again, he can go in again. That way we would be able to. That is one of the proposed solutions, I believe.
I want to quickly respond to what Saju said about Coca-Cola thing. First of all, coca leaf, contains, you can extract cocaine from coca leaves. So it's not that you are, neither of us were wrong. The cocaine is extracted from the coca leaf, and that was what was in Coca-Cola at the time, because people believed that cocaine was like safe in moderate amounts and things like that. So the legal understanding of how to look at cocaine changed over time as they started understanding the long-term effects of these drugs. So I don't know if you still think it was a myth that Coca-Cola contained cocaine. It did contain cocaine.
It is a rumor, and it still stands to be a rumor. There is no cocaine.
I want you to share the resources, because I'm going to share my sources.
Please do share.
Yes.
Please do share.
Yeah. Send your sources on WhatsApp group. Yeah.
Yeah, it should not be the India Today link or anything. And Raghav, the thing is, I have changed my opinions on many things. But in today's information age, the other problem is of addiction to misinformation, because that is also a type of addiction. Because the way the misinformation is served to the people, it is laced with fear and sensationalism, which is another type of drug. I can show you the information, but I'm telling you right now, Raghav, I'm pretty sure you'll not believe it.
Okay.
That is how it works.
Okay. Rose, can I have access to share the screen? I would like to share the screen so that I can show my source right now. And you can also...
but I think you are hijacking the discussion.
No, it is important, because you raise a really important point, which is like busting
Actually,
it is not
Saju
important.
and Raghav, guys, I'll give you like 5 minutes, like both of you included 5 minutes. Share whatever sources you have. Let's get done with this so others can go along with their closing statements.
No.
Raghav, I guess you can share.
So I'm sharing my screen. This is not India Today.
Why
this is
am I muted?
You're not muted.
Okay.
No, I was muted just now.
Nobody muted you.
I was not the one who muted you. If you were muted, you just muted
Raghav,
yourself.
what you are showing on the screen is an AI analysis of the NIH data. It is not correct.
No, look at this. Okay, you
share AI.
yours. No, this is a National Library of Medicine. Okay, this is a credible organization.
That is an AI extract of the data. Read under that.
No, let's actually look at the entire article then.
Okay.
This is the NCBI. That's where people do this, people. Incidentally, at one time, there was cocaine in Coca-Cola, late 1800s. Okay, we're talking about 1800s. At the time, it was common to use cocaine in patent medicines. Coca-Cola drastically reduced its cocaine content to a mere trace when it became known that cocaine could be harmful. It was not until 1929 that Coca-Cola drink became cocaine-free. This is my source.
Yeah, but you are saying, did you not say that the cocaine is there in Coca-Cola?
I said it used to have it. Then they realized it was harmful. Then they stopped putting cocaine in Coca-Cola.
Okay. Then that's what I also said, right? It is not there.
First of all, listen to what people are saying, Saju. You just made a huge drama out of not simply listening to what I was saying. I was saying that the origin of the word coca in Coca-Cola was that it used to have cocaine, but they still kept the name. The name is the same, but it used to have cocaine, and now it is cocaine free. It was in only 1929 that they made it cocaine free. Anyway.
All right.
Coca is mentioned there in the extract. If you see on the top, it is not cocaine. It is the extract of the coca plant.
Would
Listen,
you like
Saju,
to
you have like
share
very
your
little knowledge on what you're talking
screen?
about. First, Rose,
All
hold
right,
on.
Raghav, let's not make personal
Saju, you have
remarks.
very little knowledge of what you're talking about. I'm telling you all this from proper research, not like some 30-second realization that you just had. Okay.
Okay, I did hear clearly that you said cocaine contains Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola contains cocaine. That's what I said.
I
that
said,
it doesn't
okay. Did anybody else misunderstand it that way, or was I clear in saying that it used to contain and then it stopped?
Okay. Guys, let's just stop this because this may have been a very small misunderstanding. And Raghav, you've
Okay.
cleared your stance. Do you have anything to share? Like, do you want to share your screen, Saju?
Okay. I think Samad said I was clear. Anyway, yeah, I think
Anyway,
this is
let's proceed.
deviating
Yeah,
from the
I
conversation.
will view the recording later. Yeah.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
this
I
is
guess we are clear.
yeah. So are we open in the open conversation, or we still in the?
Yeah, I let Prince and Ellen go ahead, and then we'll
Okay.
move into the unmod session. Prince, please go.
Yeah, thanks, Rose. So first of all, yeah, I'll just sum it up because first of all, Raghav pointed out that Thailand has decriminalized cannabis. Yes, it has decriminalized it, but it is solely for medical purposes, although it is being used for several other reasons, but that's technically not legal. And there was a huge public backlash also due to these wrong uses that might come. And I would also like to put forth a fact. Before that, I'll say that I came to these crime rates by adding the crime rate of offense against property and crime rate related to life and sex. So the crime rate of Thailand in 2021, before the decriminalization of cannabis, was 100 per 100,000. And in 2023, it shot up to 122 per 100,000 people. And this is a huge thing because the crime rate of Thailand was going down from, I guess, 2003, and it randomly shot up in 2022 and 2023. In 2022, we saw the crime rate of Bangkok rising after like about 2 decades of about 2 decades of decline, and yeah, it randomly just shot up in 2022, the year when the cannabis was decriminalized. So these kind of case studies do kind of tell us that legalization of these recreational drugs could lead to more crimes on the roads or commons. Yeah, Rose.
Thank you, Prince. Ellen, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Dhoni. So I'll just provide a closing statement from my side. It's that first from adding from Prince that legalization could add to more crime rates. I think there are much more crimes committed because of it being illegal still, in terms of adding to the crime of peddling and going behind the law to deal it to the consumers. So that I mean, it's still not clear as to whether it will increase or decrease. It's definitely a feeling. All the face value, if you see, we can all say that legalizing drugs can increase the crime rates, but we still have not tested it as a society. So that's what I said also initially that everything seems to be something we are only going to realize after things happen. It is like the whole human law system. It's like the act of jurisprudence. Jurisprudence is the art of lawmaking, and we create laws only after we feel the effects. Sometimes we perceive certain effects when we already create certain laws, but let's say, it gets stronger only after we see the effects of it, and then, I mean, even take the case of cocaine or heroin or opium and all the drugs. I don't think initially people even realized how effective it can be. When they felt the joy, when they felt the dopamine, or the psychedelics, they were all on the train. They were all going with it. And then once it hit a roadblock, and then they were like, oh, you know what? Maybe this is not as good as we thought it could be. So after having all these societal experiments, we come to understanding that maybe these drugs can be legalized, can be controlled in a controlled manner, and these drugs, should not be legalized. We are at least at a stance today as a society. And also one main thing we have to take, I mean, at least I have to take note is that the topic is should we legalize drugs or not should we legalize addiction or not. I think we all understand that addiction is a part and parcel of the society today. So given that we already have that as a fundamental basis, now we shift to what drugs can be legalized. So if the government actually somehow takes a complete control of the chain of how, let's take for this case, marijuana is propagated to the society, there is a possibility that they can actually alter it in such a way that it cannot be as harmful as it can be if it is just let run cat free, and people get however they want it. So there could be positives too. Uh, but and the negatives also, like like I said, on face value, I can say this is bad, the addiction, etc., etc., etc. Those are the kinds of negatives I can add. But beyond that, since I already said that we accept as a society that addiction is a way of living today. If given the case, I think it's an experiment to run. And then as we go, I think if we do legalize, as we go, I think we will shape the laws accordingly.
Okay, thank you, Ellen. So it's about 12:40. I think it's time we move into the unmoderated session. So general instructions for the unmoderated session would be that you guys no longer need to raise your hands to be able to speak, but please make sure that nobody's cutting off each other, and please maintain decorum and do not be disrespectful to each other under any circumstance.
Just to avoid confusion, I just missed the word. It is legalized for medical purpose now. Sorry, I accept my mistake. I forgot to say the word now. It was legalized for recreational purposes as well, but it is legalized for medical purposes only now. It came after a huge public backlash. I said the public backlash point and I forgot to say it. Sorry. Yeah, Raghu.
Okay. No, I think the criminalization, I mean, or the relationship between legalization of recreational use and criminal activities is something that is very interesting. I still don't understand the mechanism as to how that happens. Like, is it that these people are getting high on marijuana and committing crimes, or is it something that I think that's something that we have to look at to actually understand how it's actually happening, this data. So Samat, I don't know if you had anything to talk about that. Yeah. I think this is an open discussion. Anybody can unmute themselves and speak, I think. So
Okay, just to add to that, it's not necessarily that people get high and then they commit the crimes. I'm just speculating. There is also the downer phase where, it's after the use of it, I'm not able to get it again, or there's a phase. And, there's a possibility of actually uh, aberrant reactions in that period of time.
Okay. I guess like that just confirms that we don't know.
Yeah. I was just speculating. Like I said,
Yeah.
it's an experiment to be done. I mean,
Yeah.
thoroughly.
What I come to know from the movies and personal experiences of relatives and all is when the addiction happens, um, the addict, will try to seek out the drug by whatever means possible. So I think the culprit here is the addiction.
No, yeah, that's the thing. See, it also deals with competence, right? The competence of the person who's using this drug. So there are people who can actually manage to make sure that they have sufficient. They're only using the amount that they can afford, and they're keeping it controlled. And they're seeing that if they're seeing that it's having a detrimental effect, they're able to stop. So it's not just like, I think the dependency rate also varies across individuals. And that's actually a gray area with something like weed, because or weed or something else, like for example cigarettes or coffee or whatever, whichever one once you take, right. Some people are addicted, some people are okay with like moderate or like occasional use. So it's actually individual dynamics also plays a role. But I guess like you have to look at like what is the maximum number of people, what is the impact it's having on the maximum number of people. And yeah, that is something that we have to look at before we outright say that this is a very addictive substance or something, because there is no such thing. Like, would you say coffee is a extremely addictive substance? Because
I'll give you a better example. Would you say sugar is addictive?
That's again a difficult question, right? I think that's my point basically, that it's different for different people. Some people actually don't like sugar.
Yeah, I don't.
Raghav, I do agree that it depends on the people's competence, but we cannot really make it as a survival of the fittest case. That, you are not competent enough to control.
No, that's
we have to take into. I mean, I agree. I mean, in the sense that we have to take into account that there are people who are probably not that competent as well. And the addiction is pretty real. Like I said, there are numerous cases that we come across in our lives that I've noticed that the substances are actually addictive. I sometimes used to question that why is it even getting you to that phase or getting a certain person to that phase. I wasn't able to understand, and then but later I had to accept the fact that yeah, there is there is a factor, there is a spectrum of addiction in it. But that's why in my closing statement I also mentioned that I think we all have come to accept in a way that there are various forms of addiction. Like for example, Sachin was saying sugar, and I was also saying about how movies and hero worshipping is also a form of addiction, which is something I will never understand. Why would I've seen speeches or debates with people where they were questioning why are you spending, let's say, 2 lakhs out of your pocket to put a cutout of a hero and then pour milk or worship a garland and then dance, burst crackers on an every episode show. And that person was saying about how he's not even earning and he had to take that money out of his parents. These are all youth, and like you are 18 plus to 21, or even people of younger age. So when these things are not banned, when cigarettes are not banned, we as a society have accepted that addiction is lingering around everywhere. Like in every street corner you go, you see 5, 6 people smoking cigarettes. We have accepted it as a society. So given that we have accepted it, how much of you want to control this marijuana and all that? I'm actually agreeing with you that we do not know anything, the full spectrum at all. We are just assuming that it's addictive and it's more dangerous. But there are many aspects that are also dangerous.
Yeah, adding to what Ellen has said, I guess Napoleon also said that religion is the opium of masses. It's not one religion or the other. Additionally, isn't the basic characteristic of any drug to make so that the blood does not reach the brain as fast to kind of react? And I guess crime just does not happen because more than half of us, it's just the laws are just a deterrence, and if that cognitive ability within us is lost, then the crime rate might increase. We saw this wherever there is a militancy or uh, a separatist movement. There is a sudden rise in the usage of drugs, and we see it from the Punjab in the 1980s to Kashmir in the 90s. Uh, a big reason of the separatist movement in the northeast is the big porous border with Bangladesh and Myanmar. And we also saw this, the impact of drugs on the human psyche in World War II as well, where I guess it was Nazi soldiers who were using crystal meth for during their times in the bunkers, so that they don't feel the situation or they get acclimatized better. So
They were given that. They were not using it, they were given it.
I mean, I was not there to confirm it, maybe, but they were using it, whether given or not. Yeah, so I guess
No,
drugs kind of plays with our cognitive ability, and then crimes do go up because there's no deterrence against it. You're sort of on cloud nine.
So
yeah,
I think we have to separate the two. So one is addiction and one is the change in human behavior because of the drug. So if we can keep these two separate, I can propose a thought experiment. So if you suppose there is not much change in human behavior, or there is not much change in there is not much addiction to it, would we all be okay with it?
Say that again,
I would
set
like
off the
to
base.
add to that. If there is not much change in human behavior, first of all, I don't think it would even be sorted after if they do not feel a difference. So, if the moment you remove that from the premise, there is no need for even discussing it as a drug. The underlying, the underlying definition of a drug is that, I mean, the drug at least we are speaking about is that it somehow alters your behavior for a certain period of time. Also, to just add to what Prince was saying about how the rise of rebellions and usage of drugs around these areas. That's once again how we were trying to categorize those drugs apart from the drugs we are trying to speak in the terms of legalization. Those are all I'm pretty I don't have the stats for it, but I can definitely speculate to say that they definitely were on the spectrum of hard drugs at least. Because in the areas you mentioned, they had great access to opium and heroin and other drugs. So that's where the discussion also is like, could we narrow it down to say which drugs are probably the ones that could increase crime rates and which drugs actually do not do it.
I think Samath,
Okay.
you
Yeah,
were telling
go
us
ahead,
about
go ahead.
that. Yeah, Samath, you were telling about like that you can answer that as to what is the relationship between legalization and crime increase. I didn't hear
Yeah,
your.
so the more I look into it, the more complex the picture becomes. So I don't think I would be doing justice with the knowledge I have to like speak about it.
No, but
Yeah.
do try.
Well, so from what I have heard is like I don't think there is any state in USA which has like legalized hard drugs. I don't think even the most liberal state in USA they have legalized hard drugs. They have just legalized marijuana. But even on the harder drugs, I think they've taken a more liberal approach. They're not going to prosecute people who are going to consume hard drugs. So like they took this policy with the intention of like not punishing people for the problems they have. Like if a person is gonna be addicted to these hard drugs, these laws were brought into mind saying that we're not gonna punish you, we're instead gonna treat you. so they had a more liberal and open-minded attitude about people suffering from these addictions. So they were not prosecuted, basically, people consuming hard drugs. But these policies, they did not have the intended effect, is what I heard. Like basically, what this led to was like some entire neighborhoods in prominent cities like San Francisco or Seattle, they were like occupied by drug addicted or dysfunctional people, and these people were like easy prey to like gang members. These are the most vulnerable sections in the population. They could be like uh, brought into gangs for the purposes of committing financial fraud or prostitution, or they will be like jacked up to create like uh, crimes like robbery. So what happened is like people throughout America who are like dysfunctional from various states. Throughout America, people who have these addictions, they are like going towards these like safe haven cities like San Francisco or Seattle, and large neighborhoods of these cities, they are being like turned into like virtual garbage, because the law enforcement there are not like willing to crack down on people consuming hard drugs in public places. So this is like what I can gather from these sources. But I don't think even in these places they have been like properly legalized the hard drugs. Only the marijuana legalization has been done, but a more tolerant attitude has been shown towards consuming these hard drugs. So yeah, so this is the picture.
No, that's a really good synthesis. I think I've been also like looking at these videos of like Oakland, California, right? It's actually really crazy that it's even worse than the worst places in India. It's like that, because like not only are these people living in abject poverty, but also they have like a high incidence of like hard drug use and guns. So people get like shot every now and then. People get the property stolen so often. And actually, this is, even though you can look at this and say that legalization of marijuana is coincidental with this kind of like a crime rate. These two are not related. The problem is more complex than that. You can have like statistics and have an observation, but if you're not counting in all the other influences that are causing that crime rate spike, then you're not looking at the entire picture. Because the problem in Oakland and other places in the US, like Skid Row is another place, where if you go there, right, you will see a side of America that you could not even imagine. It's like that. It's basically they there is a stereotype about Indians, defecating on the street. Like open defecation is a problem in India, but if you go there, you will understand it's even worse there. And the problem over there is that the hard drug use, right? And that is not related to the marijuana in any way. The reason why they are doing that is I'm not really sure what the reason is, why the legal law enforcement officers are not taking a notice of the drug use, and they're not intervening in actual crime. The other reason why the crime rate has spiked in the US, or in many places, is that these people have stopped hitting down on crimes like carjacking or robbery or theft. So what they've done is they basically decriminalize those things, as in like they basically soft decriminalize it, as in like they don't enforce the law. Laws exist, but they don't enforce it, and that's the reason why there is a spike in the crime as well. It's not even related to drug use. It's basically a poor legal enforcement strategy that is leading to that crime spike. So I don't know if you can use this data that is resulting in this, but I do think that there could be a correlation. We just don't know enough, I think.
There could be a contribution to the situation, but it is not the source of the problem. So,
Yeah, it's hard to isolate it.
Yeah. And one more thing that I just want to add to what Samat was saying is that more liberal sense towards the consumption of hard. I think the law enforcement is trying to target people who are providing this to the citizens of US rather than people who are taking it, and the cartels, for example. So I think the target is all around that and not more like not concentrated on people who are actually buying and then later consuming in, let's say, smaller amounts compared to the package that's being delivered. And also, just adding to the idea of that, it's actually more liberal. I think I don't know how common this knowledge is, but many artists who are performing in US, they actually many artists even in Europe, or I don't know how many do it in India, they kind of microdose on psychedelics. It kind of helps them to be creative on the edge. So that has actually got me thinking as to how far behind in time were humans actually exposed to drugs. Like, are we evolutionarily kind of designed to go towards drugs, or is it just something that's boomed after like 1800s? So that's actually a topic that I'd like to discuss.
I'm trying to find data on what was spoken about crime rates, and I found the opposite data actually. That crime rates due to drugs enforcement,
That is
legalization of drugs.
Yeah, I'm posting the link of the data on the channel.
Okay.
Additionally, this is of the whole country, but additionally, a sudden rise has been seen, especially in Thailand. Oh, sorry, especially in Bangkok, and that was from. I guess you'll have to enroll there. Yeah, I can send some more, but those are more specific to Bangkok.
No, what is it? I mean, I'm not able to see it. I'm not sure if you have access to the exclusive content or something.
Yeah, that's my bad.
Okay, maybe
I'll send some.
maybe you can share your screen.
Yeah, just.
But actually, the other thing is that people are against the recriminalization of weed in Thailand again, because like now a lot of people have established businesses in Thailand that are based on cannabis and recreational use of weed. And what happens now is that like if they recriminalize it, then all of these people will go out of business, and that's why they're protesting on the streets. That's my assumption, at least.
No, the criminalization or bringing it within the law has the effect that the political party in power benefits a lot by soft peddling of imposition of laws. So, like classic case is Gujarat, right, where alcohol is banned, but politically everybody makes a lot of money.
Right. No, actually, there's another thing in this article that I just posted in the chat. Basically, they're saying that the legal amendment, like basically the relaxations that are done for the weed, right, that has created a network of distribution where people are also introducing other kinds of drugs through the same network of distribution. So, for example, if you find a certain weed shop and you go there to buy weed, and normally people buy weed, but if you ask for them for something else that is illegal, maybe they also provide that. That's what they're saying. And so if you factor in that as well, again, the relationship between drugs abuse and crime rates is like becomes very questionable. Because what if the legalization of marijuana led to secondary outcomes, such as like the easier distribution of other illicit drugs, and that the consumption of those drugs is what led to the increase in crime rate, right? So that it kind of
So
like complicates the problem.
so I want to separate the four aspects from our discussion, right? One is the addiction aspects, and one is the behavioral aspect, change in behavior of a human being, right? And hence the society. And the third is crime rates. Now, the third part of crime rates is very easy for me to defeat because crime can be associated with anything. There are people where in my hello, am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible. Suddenly you got muted. I don't know how or why. I think there's some maybe like you
No,
accidentally pressed it.
it is a problem at my end. So
Okay.
three things, right? Addiction, behavior, change in behavior, and third thing is the crime rates, right? Spike in crime rates. Now the crime rates is easy for me to debunk because crime can be associated with anything. It is associated with power structures, right? Whoever has got power will try to keep it. There I know about uh, in my childhood, I know about tuition school teachers who are running huge tuition classes used to fight with each other, and they used to have goons. Now that used to happen, right? So it is a different problem, and I think it should be kept out. It is more related to power structures and human behavior. It should be kept out of the discussion. Yeah, I think we should address addiction and change in behavior. I feel the way Prince told, maybe that's a solution, that government sponsored recreation centers should be there. That's a very good idea, I think.
Yeah. I think with that again you get like bunch of other complications in picture because like see if I go to a government approved recreational center and I consume it there, maybe like I'm out in like 3 or 4 days and now I feel like I need to do it again, and I don't like the inconvenience of the regulations that are imposed by the government, so I'm going to seek it elsewhere. So the illegal use of that drug is going to still persist because other people are going to exist who are going to try to profit from the regulations placed by the government. So it is not so straightforward. That is what I think the my
But then don't you call that addiction?
that's what if you're going to have addictive substances consumed in controlled environments, it is still not a solution. It is the problem is going to leak, it's going to go into other places.
But then if you accept that it is addiction, it can happen to anything, right? Alcohol also. If you are an addict and you don't get that bottle, you will do anything to do it.
Exactly, yeah. So now there are issues related to personal freedom that brings into play, and the rules right now are just like very arbitrary as to how we are applying these laws to different substances.
But then you are talking about the personal freedom of a patient, of a medical patient, versus the personal freedom of a citizen, right? When you talk about addiction.
What do you mean by patient? Who's a patient? We never talked
A
about a
person
patient.
who is an addict is a medical patient, right?
Not necessarily. I mean,
Okay.
if you're a patient in the context of a medical industry, like if I own a hospital and I call somebody a patient, it's only in the context of a doctor or professional that you call a patient, the title of a patient.
So what do you call a person who is very strongly addicted to something and he will do anything to get it?
He's just a dependent. I mean, you can call him different things, but depending on the severity, you can have, for example, right, like even classification of something like depression. It is done on the basis of severity. They have always had a qualifier saying mild depression or severe or moderate or something like that. And when it comes to, for example, you being addicted to coffee, you can claim to be a coffee addict. So you don't have to be a patient. You're just an addict. Patient comes into the context of treatment. Anyway, so you're just an addict, and I think that's a valid point that who is anybody to stop me from being addicted to my phone, let's say, or let's say you're addicted to your wife or your husband or something. Who is somebody else to come and stop you from engaging in that addiction, right?
Yeah. For example, addiction to cigarettes, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's going to stop you from being addicted to cigarettes. But for example, if I'm in a family, my wife is there, she will definitely stop me. She will say, don't do that.
Right. Right, because it has like effects on your health, and therefore also beyond the health effects, right? It also has an effect on the well-being of the persons around you, because like if you're smoking, you're probably also like exposing them to secondhand smoke, and or maybe there are other side effects that are coming through your smoking habits that are unpleasant for the people around you. So that's where I established this rationale for why legal regulation is a necessity, right? About this, it's just about like where you draw the line and how you structure these legal regulations in place. That is where I think we need to have a redefinition of like how we approach the problem.
I would like to explore this further, Raghav, because I think you have touched upon what is the problem or what everybody is up against. I think nobody has a problem if their friend is addicted to cigarettes and he puffs away 20, 50, 100 cigarettes a day, and only his wife would be concerned. But the society in general is not concerned about addiction to cigarettes. Now, I don't know why is that.
No, there is a
But they are
there is
concerned.
also like a commercial industry in operation. Okay, there is a huge cigarette industry that started spreading around the world. Actually, this was done even before
No, that
the
is
no
that is a
the reason.
privatization issue.
No, the reason why cigarettes have an exclusive status is because their commercialization happened way before the legal status was identified. And what happened was that there was large industries in place that were based on the tobacco industry, and they could easily buy the politicians. So they've kept the legal status of tobacco, even though it has detrimental effects. People have come to realize that it gives you cancer. So they've because the industries are too powerful to do anything at the moment. So what they've done is they managed to like squeeze in some kind of like a compromise, saying that you have to advertise that you're going to give us cancer when you're also selling this. So that's why there's an absurd outcome here. We're basically legally selling a product that is known to kill you, and the government is okay and doing it openly. So
Okay,
there is a
let me
power
ask
of the
you a simple question. You know the number of people who die of diabetes versus the number of people who die of cancer due to smoking?
it's
Which
different.
one do you think is higher?
Diabetes is of course higher. Yeah.
So tell me which substance kills people more? Is it sugar or is it the cigarette?
No, you
Yes.
cannot put a rationale like that. You have to go into the percentages. How many people are smoking and how many percentage of that people are getting
Yeah,
diagnosed
exactly.
to
Yeah.
cancer, and it goes the
Amazing.
same way to
Okay.
the people.
Let's do that. Yeah, let's do that. You will be surprised by the results. Let's do that.
You
why
cannot.
don't you just say it, man? Just say it. Say what is on your
How do
mind.
you know how many
No,
people are eating sugar?
I
No,
don't
no,
have
no,
it.
no.
No, no. He has
Let me
asked a
ask
very
you.
good question. I don't have the figures. Let me be honest. But
Okay.
Now,
I
how do
am a
you?
suspect.
So if you don't have the figures, then what makes you think that you'd be surprised? It makes you sound like you know what you're talking about.
By the way, whoever mentioned that, I have diabetes and it is genetic. It is mostly genetic, and I don't take sugar. I can die
No,
of diabetes
Yeah,
even without taking sugar.
it is similar. It is
Yeah,
similar with cancer
let's
as well.
say we are talking about
See,
type 2. Yeah.
it's a similar with cancer and tobacco as well, because it's not like everybody who smokes has a definite chance of cigarette of cancer, or the rate of progression is also the same. It has different effects on different people based on genetic factors as well. Same with sugar, right? Different people consume different people consuming similar amounts of sugar quantity have different effects based on genetic factors. So that applies across the board. Now, the potency, right?
No, I haven't seen any study like that who says that X amount of sugar consumed by X person doesn't
Maybe
lead to
you should spend
diabetes.
some time looking at that. You'll find the studies for that.
This is the basic.
I
Diabetic
no,
people
if you
cannot
have
take
it,
sugar.
please present it. No,
No,
I don't have it.
It's easy, man. It's on. You look it up. I think you need to learn to look it up. Look up these things. These are basic things. You should be able to find it. If you don't find it, then you message me on WhatsApp. I'll tell you.
This is the
Anyway,
basics of diabetes, Saju. I mean,
yeah.
I'm a diabetic person and I don't take
No,
sugar.
you are a type 1. We are not talking about type 1.
Listen, it doesn't matter so much. The principle applies. Okay. Anyway. So
No, hold on. So you do know what is difference between type 1 and type 2, Raghav?
no, why don't you elaborate?
So we have been discussing all this while about diabetes without knowing what is type 1 and type 2, right?
I don't know the details, man. But I'm just saying the principle of like genetic affecting your susceptibility for for the hazards of a substance is a principle that applies across things, across the domains. And
so my question to you is, for the type 2 diabetes, do you have any study or results or study done by which you have made that decision?
I haven't done that right now, but I was talking more about general principles. But we will look into this.
I'm trying to tell you that you're talking about type 1 diabetes, which is genetic related, which is what that gentleman has. We are talking about, generally, we are talking about type 2.
Yeah, that also, it relates to certain other factors. Like I think being overweight and also your diet also has an effect on in these things, right?
No, again, we are going into something knowledgeable area. See, I have family members who are affected by type 2. Okay, so I know.
Even if you consider type 1, when you say hereditary, it's not existed several million years ago. Okay, you can only go back to 3 or 4 or 10 generations. Before that, they don't have type 1 diabetes. So it's a type 2 diabetes translated into type 1 diabetes.
So that is a new claim. I have to check that out. How you have decided that type 1 was not existing many generations ago. I don't have data for that. Maybe you're right. I don't know.
See, I think one of those, I forget the details, but one of those is related to insulin resistance, and I think that is also, like, has a genetic component to it. Anyway, like, see, let's not get like too into the details or get very pedantic about the discussion on diabetes. I'm just saying the general principle, right? Different substances have different effects on the person, depending on genetic factors, and sometimes even circumstantial factors, or even what we talked about earlier in terms of like competence and things like that. So anyway, I think we are derailing from the main conversation. I forgot even why we even started talking about this. Like variable effects of
legalizing whether drugs, recreational drugs, should be legalized. That is the main topic, and we are actually, yeah. If you consider sugar as a drug, which many people agree, I believe it should be. It is a valid discussion, right?
Yeah. So the reason why sugar is not having the same thing, again, the industry comes into the play. Sugar is an industry, and also the level of moderate use, because it's something that people have learned to use moderately, and the people who refuse to use it moderately, they are suffering the consequences of diabetes and overweight and all these things. So again, sugar is not regulated. You don't have to, like, declare how much sugar you're consuming in a day or something. There is no legal mechanism in place. But I think the reason is because the consequences are milder and the duration of effects are longer. So if you're having like a slow degradation of lifestyle over a long time, I feel like people think it's reasonable to have relaxed imposition of laws around that. But if you have like a very rapid decline due to the consumption of a certain drug, and also if it is damaging you in ways that not just limit the effects to you. For example, if somebody has diabetes, right, it's their own problem. I'm not affected by that problem. So it's okay to allow people to consume sugar because they're only affecting themselves. But if somebody takes, like, horse tranquilizers and I or something like that, and their behavior is going to be disruptive for the others around them, or maybe they even there is again a gray area in terms of coffee, because coffee does have a change in people's behavior over a short span of time as well. And it's just that we are okay with tolerating those kinds of changes. It's just that with the change in the extent of the behavioral change, right? That is where things get problematic, because now it's becoming challenging to draw the line. Where is the line, right? That becomes an ethical question, which is why we have this whole the problem is kind of challenging because of that. There are all these gray areas. There is no black and white in this.
Yeah, Raghav, and one more thing. Let's say we consume something, and if it affects the next generations, coming generations, then what would you do?
Again, that's a much longer study, right? You have to perform those studies, and honestly, I don't think we have sufficient data to do that even for cigarettes.
Let me ask the mirror side of that. Suppose you consume something and it affects your coming generations in a positive way. Would you consider that as okay?
Of course. Would people be like banning that in the first place if it was positive? Why would they even ban it in the first place? Give me an
There
example.
I'm not giving an example. It is like that question was put up, right? And I had the like, are we against it because it
See,
affects our generations negatively, right? But if it affects positively, we don't mind consuming it. That's what I feel is a conclusion.
Saju, there is no such thing where something that you consume, affects you positively, and again, people were banning that. There is no such thing, because anything that is good, people embrace it and people celebrate it. It's only when it has a negative consequence of some kind, then this question even starts. So that is what I
There
would say.
is an argument to be made when anybody is consuming and becoming unhealthy, and it is becoming a burden on the medical system, which is funded by the taxpayers' money. There is an argument to be made, and there is a statistics. I'm not sure about Indian statistics because of the privatization of the medical industry. But there is a statistics in USA that 5% of the citizens use the medical system. I'm not saying that everyone is consciously taking becoming unhealthy and becoming a burden of it, but there is a certain argument to be made that unhealthy citizens would affect the taxpayers, becomes a burden on taxpayers.
Of course, yeah, that is one of the detrimental effects of drug abuse, because like it affects you, but also it has a distant side effect on the others. Because see, it's just the nature of how things are. Any
Yeah.
human experience, right? It permeates and reaches the others in some way or the other.
Yes.
So if you have like a lot of joy within you, you will infect the others with the same joy. If you have a lot of like suffering within you, you will do the same. So if somebody is suffering because of drug use, then they are going to spill over that suffering in some form or the other. But the question is, are you preventing this person from exercising their personal freedom by preventing them from making that choice that is detrimental to them? Because how do you learn? Because somebody else was also here talking about like how they are against it, but maybe in the past they may have used it or something like that.
That
And
is the agreement of the society and the democracy that we made, that shortcomings of some people will be tolerated to an extent by
yeah,
the
so
rest of the
that's what I'm
society.
saying. There is a line that we have to draw. In the extremes, that line can be like very very bad.
Yes.
But somewhere
Yeah.
in the middle, if you manage to do it, it's an equal compromise where you're getting to exercise a certain amount of personal freedom, and you're able to evolve from making your own decisions, even if you're bad decisions. Nobody, if you're prevented from making bad decisions, you may never learn, right? So but
Yes. Yeah.
if you are allowed to make decisions that are so bad that you can never recover from it, that's also bad, right? So there is a line somewhere there. And
There
again,
is still a study going on in Netherlands because they have legalized these soft drugs, and there are some medically controlled research which has like a conclusive results that microdosing of LSD and cannabis is actually good for your health. So it is
exactly,
considered
yeah.
as a medical
Again,
the medical profession. Yeah.
this is another thing in medicine, is that I used to study this like in class. They used to say that like toxicology they say that dosage is the
Yes.
is what determines the toxicity of a
So
substance.
definitely, even chilies are a poison, right?
Yeah.
You eat a little bit of chili, that will be good. That is good for you. I mean, technically, medically. But if you eat like a lot of chili powder, it will kill you. It's a fact.
I mean,
So
why chili? Like you can even like overdose on water. If you drink enough
yeah,
water, you can
yeah,
die.
sure, sure. Yeah, your
And
kidneys will overfunction, and then yes, of course.
yeah, and even air, like if I pump in more air that my lungs can take, I
Yeah.
can die from it. So yeah, so basically dosage is what that is what again I'm saying, like it's a line that you draw, and it has to be done properly, in a scientific manner. Actually, this is like a thought that came to me, but during this discussion, I just think that what if we had like a legal system that is based on different degrees of impact on personal freedom and personal experience of life of an individual. So if it's an individual centric legal framework, right, we can classify crimes on the basis of like or crimes or violations or things that we
Yeah.
want to prevent on the basis of like the level of impact on the person. For example, if something is physically contacting me, that's a different grade of crime. If something is leaving a physical mark, permanent physical mark, that is a different grade of crime. If something is like, not physically touching me, but it is having a severe psychological impact, that is a certain kind of crime. So if you have like different schedules of crimes based on this impacts on the human system, and similarly, if you also like, measure the severity of a crime on the basis of like in a group scenario,
Yeah,
right?
that is why the
So,
American justice system has a jury, right? Even though if the law says something, the jury can decide against it.
yeah, and
So they
you
have
can
a
you can extend that to like, you can extend that physical definition of the legal system to also like have group dynamics, where if 10 people are there and they're all like impacted in some way, either physically or psychologically or mentally, or emotionally or something like that, where that could lead to a certain justification of the claim. I think like you mentioned, the jury system kind of like takes into that into account, but I think we could have like a more uh, you know like systematized way of looking at this is what I was thinking. And also, again, in terms of the effects of the drug, it becomes easier to measure the severity of a drug based on these kind of classifications in terms of like, extent of damage, short term, long term, variables, and also like, extent of permanence of damage, or the rate of damage, and all these things. So we could have
I
like
I
different
think
classes.
the challenge with our society, Indian society, is not the perception of the damage. Otherwise, people would have banned cigarettes long back. I think with the drug system, maybe it is more to do with the way it kind of compromises the person and kind of changes his behavior permanently. Some kind of
No,
perception related to that.
it's
But
not
does
about the
it really
perception.
happen? I don't know.
No, I'm not talking about the perception. I'm just saying that the laws have to be drafted on the basis of evaluating the
Yeah,
impact of
that's a
these
good
drugs on
idea.
the
Yeah,
system, and
yeah, yeah.
that has nothing to do with the perception. Perception is something that is completely cultural component of this. I'm just saying in terms of creation of the legal framework, classification of the bodily, harm in a very
like
detailed, granular
there is
way.
an European country which gives you a fine of a traffic violation depending on your financial status. I'm not sure which country it is. So if you're a
No,
rich
that is
person, your traffic
completely
violation would
Sweden, I think.
something
Sweden.
like that.
So I think see, that is basically like active, like intelligent crime deterrent, right? Basically, if you are
Yeah,
charging 500 rupees as a fine to a crorepati, he would probably do it on a daily basis,
yeah, because
right?
the 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 punishment is not
Severe enough, yeah,
discouraging them to do that.
exactly. So it's basically like restructuring the incentive system to promote social order, right? This is something that we have to do. It's a necessary evil, and it has to be done in moderation. And what I'm saying with regards to this is completely different from what you just said, Sandeep. I think with what you said was basically about incentivizing and extent of punishment. But I'm saying even in terms of if you take away punishment as a component of this whole discussion, right? There is even
Yes,
even
yes.
even at the level of preventing the incident from happening, we have to have legal framework. And
Yeah.
there we have to have like clarity as to how you look at these substances,
So
and
the
how you
same debate goes to the rape culture when people are saying punishment is not you can there is something happens again and then there is a lot of uphill battle towards it and uh, the sudden urge in a severe punishment for the crime committed
let,
and I would always go back to the fact that prevention is what we are supposed to be looking at because the punishment we have the punishment he would get a how you say a lifetime imprisonment is if it is not the highest punishment what else you want, right?
see the problem. Actually, again, I would appreciate if you let me finish. I was going to say something
Yeah,
else, and then you cut me in. But with regards to this punishment, this topic that you just raised, the punishment, right? See, the problem with punishment is that the punishment is not a deterrent. A lot of the times, depending on whether it is possible for them to get away with it. People who
yeah,
commit crimes are not like anticipating that they're getting punished. They do it because they have
yeah,
a high degree of confidence that they'll get away from it, get away with
yes,
it. So okay, so punishment is not always an active deterrent, and and also the anticipation of punishment is not something that all criminals actually. If you look at the if you go to prisons, right, you'll find that a lot of these people have one common thing in like, a lot of them are very similar to people outside. The thing that makes them different is that they have a certain inhibition of self-control. So in that context, their perception of the punishment is not a deterrent, because they are not even in control, first of all. So what does it matter how big the punishment is or not? So that's a separate topic. So when we're talking about deterrence, that's a separate thing. But I'm talking about even in the case of like ensuring availability, right? First of all, if you don't know what this drug is doing, then it is, maybe look, you can classify it into a separate schedule there. So I'm just saying that if you have a robust and granular enough system of classification of drugs based on how it interacts with the human body, and and you do this by measuring the impact it has on the human body in those various classes that I mentioned. So if you can do it like that, then you can have effective laws in place, and then it becomes a matter of enforcement of the laws. And there we can have like a refinement based on like how effective the enforcement is, and based on that we have to have a system to restructure the laws. So the more fundamental problem here is that we need to have a very robust system of legal framework where laws are refined on the basis of observation of the consequences, and also they're enforced in a meaningful way. There is no gap between what is stated on paper and then what is actual reality, because right now there is a huge gap.
Also this kind of system do have promotes education. What's how this will affect
exactly
the addiction have on it, and also the medical system would be much more prepared to treat if any addiction would happen. So this kind of a system, see, as I was saying, it's people are going to consume it, and if you, let's say, take an addict to a random hospital, how many doctors would even be able to treat him, right? So they don't have a medical training, they don't have a knowledge how to treat this person. So that also becomes a hurdle, even if you want to save those victims.
Another thing is that if you do this right, basically you can also measure the burden on society based on the effects that the physical person, the person has on their body. And maybe we can also like impose fines on the basis of like how deteriorated that their health is. For example, if you are caught with weed, and your health is like top notch, and you're not causing any effects on people around you, and nobody's complaining about it, maybe that is that is a incentive for having controlled use of that substance, because it is your responsibility to have control over yourself. So I think this kind of a framework where you penalize people based on their burden on society is actually a very intelligent way of doing things. It actually makes it like almost like takes it out of the ethical framework, and just makes it on the basis of like a purely.
They have multiple case studies in Netherlands. There are numerous individuals who have controlled dosing of LSD, and they have improved their lives much efficient and happily for a very long time now.
The other thing about this whole thing is that a lot of these substances that are controlled, right, what happens is that a lot of them have like medicinal properties under the right circumstances. Even weed has like medicinal properties. That's actually the reason why medically it was legalized even before recreational use was even considered. And a lot of people use it for painkillers or chronic pain. People with chronic pain have use it for relief. And the other thing is that with the measurement of the impact on the society and all this stuff, it actually circumvents like you said, it educates the people first of all as to what the effect is. So based on the classification, so you can understand, because right now the variable enforcement of laws on tobacco and sugar and then weed, like people will probably think that weed is more harmful to you than tobacco, but actually they both are pretty similar in terms of their effects on you.
Because we have a tendency to understand what actually going on around you without a taboo. I mean, of course, there is a taboo attached to smoking and drinking. As you said, this smoking is commercialized even before the legal system has in place, and the commercialized industry has still been pushing the boundaries of it. And even today in Europe, public smoking is allowed, which is a sad thing for me, because it is not allowed in India. Of course, the people do it in India. Public smoking is banned in India, but again, people do it. It doesn't mean that people are accepting it. They don't have a choice. Okay, you cannot go fight with every single person on the road. Okay, you cannot smoke it. You cannot. Your life becomes so, you'll be fighting constantly on the street. But it is also a thing that if you do stand up to it, people will be stop smoking it. I've seen like at least 9 out of 10. If someone is
Yeah, that's
smoking, they
correct.
wouldn't
Yeah.
fight with you because it is socially rejected. It's not accepted. I wouldn't agree with anyone who would say that socially accepted smoking is. No, it is not. It is socially done, but it is. I can go and shame people. Okay, you cannot smoke on a public street, and they would stop it most of the time.
There's
So
stigma.
that
You're talking about stigma
yeah,
about it.
that stigma is still there, and of course because I know that smoking is harmful to health, but when okay, if we educated ourselves and we know what's the causes of the other drugs that not very popular, but for a
And
common man they don't even know that what are the yeah, please go ahead.
sorry, finish what you're saying. Yeah, I just want
Yeah,
to.
what I'm trying to say is the education level on alcohol and smoking, although they are very, very harmful to you, we know that. But there are some things that which may not be or may be harmful to us. We don't know how to what extent they are harmful to you, right? Because we don't know, we don't have that kind of education that we should have, so that we understand what are the things going on with all these other drugs.
Yeah, the other thing
See,
is that
Raghav, I'll just put in one more point. It's an interesting thing. There are many societies in India. I've seen my friends and all different parts have different thinking. There are many people, societies in India who consider going to a brewery to buy alcohol, beer, whatever it may be, is considered taboo, and they don't use their actual names and all that. And there are many societies, especially in the north and all, where people think it is perfectly okay to go and have a drink with friends. And that is probably also the way so our society behaves towards drugs as well. So I think there is a good idea in having very small quantity of weed or whatever drugs it may be in very small quantities, which is in which addiction doesn't spread. I believe that is what everybody is worried about. It is about addiction, I think. I'm still not very decided. Yeah.
yeah. See, the other thing is that smoking is also has like other consequences. Like for example, you're disrupting the air quality of the people around you, right? And it has like it kind of like imposes restrictions on the personal freedom of the others to breathe fresh air in whatever wherever they're smoking. And uh, this is something that actually like brings in this absurd situation that we're in again. Smoking is okay, drinking is okay. Drinking, people cause so many accidents because of drinking, but it's still okay. But LSD is banned, mushrooms are banned. Mushrooms, you're not creating any smoke, you're not creating any disruption. You're just eating it, and then you're having a quiet psychological experience within you. There has been nobody like at least not a large incidence of people committing crimes on mushrooms, but still it is banned. So what I'm saying is that I think we have to have a very close look at the whole situation and then reevaluate and reframe everything so it actually makes sense, and it is done in a very methodical fashion, as to with keeping in mind the burden to society, and measuring the impact of personal freedom and all these things.
Yeah, I personally believe that I don't smoke, I don't drink. It's been legal that as far as I know, I've seen from a childhood that it has been legal, and I've seen multiple people drinking and smoking and doing um, silly things. But see, it's would I say that why am I not getting it? It's of course it's a personal choice, and if the addiction would spread to other people because of other people are smoking or drinking, I may not say yes or no to an extent, but again, it comes down to your personal choice and your cognitive ability to understand what it does to you. Because for a very long time, I know these things are harmful to you. of course, I made a conscious choice that I will not do that, right? So if you don't, if these recreational drugs, like other things which are banned, people don't know what is happening with the on the ground reality, and once they get stick to it, they will be absorbed into it. I think that's probably one of the argument. It's not like I'm not going to put it as a solid one out there, but that is what my personal experience is. If I have seen someone like the same, consuming marijuana, if I could be able to compare it to the same thing that a person's drinking and smoking, it would have a personal effect on me. Okay, these things are bad for you. But if you don't know, if it is a stigma, the more someone has pointed out in the earlier the statements that not just the fact that they are getting addicted to that, and also the fact that it is illegal and the challenge to obtain it also might be one of the reasons that some of the people are, you know, teenagers would be like, okay, this is so a cliche. No one, they're so excited about something that gives them adrenaline that okay, I have to get it and I have to try it because it is so illegal and I want to experience it. That kind of a zeal pushes you towards something that probably wouldn't happen. I'm not sure. Probably wouldn't happen if it is like not so stigmatized and kept away from you. Yeah, Raghav?
Yeah.
I would say, Raghav, on the one hand, all this argument makes perfect sense. On the other hand, if you ask me, would I let my son have drugs? Then it is a very I don't know. It's like in my
No,
mind,
but
I'm
it also depends on the age of your child. Okay, like because like as a parent, you'll have certain control over your child until a certain point of time, right? I mean that depends according to parents. Some people may feel that my child should have more freedom, so they may allow them to do a lot of things. I mean,
no,
I'm not speaking.
Raghav, I am
I'm not.
51 years old. I am going to be 52. My parents still treat me as if I am 12 years old.
That's what I'm saying. Different people have different limit on when they would allow their child to have unrestricted freedom or something, and they have different policies. Every parent will have a different thing. And also, again, with you saying that, making that statement about your own situation, right? Again, you have, as a parent, you have a certain a policy or something, philosophy or something like that, through which you're parenting. So it kind of like, all of those things have to also blend in. You have to make a decision after considering all those things, and it is a
See,
complex
I
decision.
want to put in one more point. Okay, the way the human brain works, I know, is the satisfaction level always seeks a higher ground. So if you are having one gram of sugar, next time you have sugar, you won't be satisfied until you have 2 grams. It goes on increasing. That is how Coca-Cola has made
No,
its money.
that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. It depends on the person as well, as to what kind of an impact it has on you, and you should have the freedom to
Maybe. Yeah.
control how you consume that substance. So because the other end of the extreme is that where a society where like government decides what you eat, what you drink, what you do in your free time, that would become a nightmare for anybody to live in a society like that. So that is the stark contrast we are trying to draw the line between, where we are making equal compromises on both sides, so that we are at a sweet spot. That is the whole purpose of this discussion.
In that context, we should ban junk food.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
We should. There are a lot of things we should ban. And actually, if I could take a case example, Italy has 40% more tax on beverages made from processed sugar. Okay, they are technically indirectly discouraging people to consume it. Right. So it is just like that, like higher taxes on smoking.
Exactly.
So it is indirectly discouraging a lot of people to not to do that. So at least, I mean, you may be discouraging them, but at least you're not taking them their freedom away in a context. So you cannot just go out and say, okay, junk food is harmful to you, harmful to the planet, the plastic wrapping, everything. So everything associated with junk food is rubbish. It shouldn't even exist. But no politician, they know that anybody in the right mind would come out in the public and say, stop eating junk food. I'm not sure which politician was it? He always, whenever you give him the mic, at some point he would say stop eating junk food, but no one would take a action towards reducing the junk food in the market. So it's like that, right? It comes down to the freedom of a constitution has given you some freedoms, even though it is hurting you and the planet itself. It's about our cognitive abilities to make a decision according to that. If someone wants to keep doing that for the sake of financial freedom, we are at the democracy is at a level that we cannot stop them, or we cannot say them no to their actions right now, at least. So human tendency is to find other solutions on a bigger level. Okay, we'll find some other kind of packaging. So human freedom is probably more important than our own health, if I have to put it that way. So it's
again, it is gradient. It is a gradient.
yeah,
Freedom
it's
is
a
also
gradient,
gradient.
yes.
And also the effect. See, if you have, that's what I said. Like earlier when I was talking about the extent of damage these drugs do, right? You have the freedom to take a certain drug, let's say, but after 10 minutes of taking that, you die. You have the best 10 minutes of your experience, and you die after that. You would not even consider a drug. It's a poison. It's a known fatal poison, right? So that is the extreme version of that. So that balance between personal freedom and health out, or not just health outcome, but like overall life outcome. So that there is I think, and how much of this control of this, where you're positioning yourself in this gradient, is up to you, and how much of it is up to the society is also another gradient, where we have to decide these things. And I think ultimately the whole point of this whole exercise of discussing this whole thing is to arrive at a certain system that maximizes all of the things that we care about and minimizes the things that we want to avoid. I think that is how I think you should approach legal framework generation itself, because I feel right now there is a lot of like ethical and moral considerations more in place, rather than functional evaluations and empirical considerations and measurement based systems. But yeah, it's a good discussion. I actually have to go now.
Sure,
I'm not sure if anybody wants to continue. Yeah, I think we all want.
One last thing.
Mhm.
So the main question is: should a person be allowed to spoil his or her own life? Is the general
Yes.
topic.
Yeah.
It can be from taking drugs. It can be from eating junk food to bunking classes in the college.
Mm-hmm.
It can be any of those, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's about the severity of it. So if you bunking your classes is like detrimentally affecting the health of the people around you, then obviously we need to look at it differently. But because it's not doing it, there is no criminal. It's not a criminal offense.
But it is.
Right?
But you don't get to write the exam if you bunk classes. I mean, there is a minimum requirement.
But you could become a CEO of a multi-billion company. Okay, you cannot have a rationality on that.
See, Ashwin, you're talking about an institutional context. We're talking about a societal context. So institutional context will prioritize the institution's agenda. For an institution, they have a incentive to maintain a reputation. So they'll have their rules according to those goals. For a society, the goals are completely different. We are talking about the highest level of human collaboration in enforcing systems on the planet. So at that level, we are prioritizing different things.
Okay.
But anyway, I need to go have some food. I haven't eaten anything since morning. This was a really fun conversation, guys. Thanks a lot for joining in.
Thank you, Raghav.
Bye.
Bye.